me. So you came in, I hope, and you all came in, obviously. You have received a white stone, yes, and you're going to share a marker, because sharing is caring. So we talk about with our grandbabies, yes? So you're just going to hold it. And for those of you at home, if you don't have a white stone, let me know, and I will send you one. In the meantime, get yourself a piece of paper and just hold it in your hand. The stones are from Jerusalem. We get them through an organization in Kansas City called Jerusalem Stone. And the whole service is one that was written by a Unity minister many, many years ago. And of course, we all adapt it as we use it. And what we know is that as we hold this, we give it our energy. And then you put it on your dashboard of your car or on your altar at home, your dresser, your desktop, wherever it is. And it'll remind you of the name that comes to you today. So we're going to be naming ourselves anew, so to speak, claiming our good, first of all, for all that's already happened in 2018, the good that we know is coming to us in 2019, and then the word will be an intention. Sometimes maybe for New Year's, you've up until now maybe made resolutions. So I invite you to set an intention instead, because it's ongoing and you don't have to worry about a time frame or if you're doing it right. Intention has two meanings. One is for personal intentions. It's something that we might associate with a certain situation in our lives. The other is the intention of the energy field that surrounds us, that is us. And so then it's as us in 2019. So we're calling ourselves forward to partner with the word that comes to us during this service. There won't be a separate meditation. It's all going to be woven in, and Jan's going to be playing as that's applicable for us to get meditative and then not and back and forth. So what we know is that every time, for anybody who's a sailor, every time the wind is blowing, all that has to happen when you're on your sailboat is for the sail to catch the wind, yes? And so that's what we're asking for today. Catch the wind that is you in this world for 2019. So it's a private ritual. You can show your stone to someone else if you want, but there's not a test. There's no right or wrong. You might say, oh gosh, nothing's come to me. Take it home, go into quiet, it will come. But let's put it into context first. What's it about? Well, it comes from Revelation. However, let's look at it metaphysically first. And in Unity, we look at the Bible metaphysically. We look at the words, what do they mean from the Hebrew language, and then what happened as far as the history and the time. Most importantly, how does it fit today, all these years later, for us? Metaphysical means beyond the sight, beyond the physical. So the ceremony comes from Revelation, chapter 2, verse 17. And this is what it says. Let anyone who has an ear listen. To everyone who conquers, I will give some of the hidden manna, and I will give a white stone. And on the white stone will be written a new name that no one knows except for the one who receives it. Okay, anybody like gifts? This is your gift for 2019. So we're going to unpack it, which means how does it fit for us today individually? And each of you hearing this, you don't have to believe me. Take it home, see how it fits, try it on, and then see how it is that you're going to be part of it for the rest of the week. So in the scripture, there's actions and there's promises. The first action is listening. How many times have I not listened because I was so intent on answering? Anybody else? Hopefully not this morning because it's a little early, however. So an ear to listen is not necessarily just the outer ear, but we're grateful for these ears and all of those things that help us embellish those as we get older, yes? But we have an ear of the soul that hears the still small voice. And that's the voice of Spirit, of God. I don't know what you name it. You know, for a while, mine was a higher power when I was doing those types of things. Now I call it God. However, some days it's Spirit, and some days it's my husband. Depends. You can call it whatever you want. Just call it. All right? So we develop this inner listening each time we get quiet and we move from our head to our heart. Breathe it for a moment and think about that. And touch your head, your forehead, and then move your hand down to your heart. You'll hear this sometimes and they'll say, get out of your head and come to your senses. That's the only way we can do that. We get out of the intellect and the busyness and the details up here. And we move into, potentiality, possibility, all those great words. That's done in the quiet. Sometimes it's done for me in the quiet as I'm walking on the beach or at the gym. So it doesn't have to mean that you're sitting there, in the lotus position. Do it however you want it. You are the boss of you. Nobody else is the boss of you on how it is that you're going to move from your head to your heart. But what happens every time we do that is we still the busy mind. Now that happens kind of sort of in January because things slow down from the busy holidays and all of that. But oftentimes we might need reminders. So it's intuitive to get from the head to the heart, where the knowing is. People will say to me, are you a believer? Especially when they find out that I don't go to a mainline church. I said, well, I'm a believer, but I'm really a knower. That always stops the conversation. Because I know God is my source, and I know God, and I can name 100 things that way. So then going on with the passage, it says, to everyone who conquers. Conquering is not about war. It's not about anything outside of us. It's about conquering the inner war, the inner unrest, the inner stuff that's gunky and all of those other things. So it's not about an outer war. It's never about anybody outside of us. It's always about within. So we take time to listen, we go within, we hear the still small voice, and then what happens is what we kind of practiced last week, this letting go of things that no longer serve us, and then the releasing of our wonder happens every day, not just at a burning bowl, but you've got to make time to dedicate yourself to that. It also helps us as we get into the quiet, affirm the truth of who each of us is. We are all of that in 2 bags of chips. Now, you will not find that in the Bible. But maybe metaphysically we could interpret something like that, yes? Our spiritual qualities, the ones that we're born with, the 12 powers are some of those. We're intelligent. We have imagination. We have faith. We have strength. All of these things we're born with. Don't have to go get them anywhere else. We just need to call them forth. I was talking to someone this week and they said, I just need to have more faith. I said, so take some time in the quiet and call it forth. Call it up, call it forth. And when it's not happening, you say, I don't see you. Kind of plays hide and seek sometimes, yes, with the busyness of our mind. So call it forth and let it be around you. We realize it requires surrendering personal will. Everybody breathe. Anybody else have a control gift? Don't lie and stay in church. Raise your hands. Yes? So we go every day. My mantra is, I will to will the will of God. And I do that because, first of all, it slows down my speech. And it also helps me realize, oh, wait, I'm not in charge. God's in charge. So call forth the divine will. And there's never a negative. We need to have ego if we're going to have situations that allow us then to look at them and realize, oh, I'm too much in my ego mind, right? Well, unless you see that, then you're not going to realize that you're in your ego mind. If you don't realize that you're resisting, then you don't realize that there's a will, that you're not engaging. So it's always a process of balance. The paradox is surrendering the ego self to one of divinity. That's our everyday job. Jesus did it every day as well, surrendering our humanity to our divinity. And that's what we call, when we look at metaphysics, the individualized self versus the personality self. We want to be the I, not the P. So as we're listening, right, we take another action. We release and we surrender, we give it up, we let it go. As many times as you need to do it, do it. You find it all coming down and heavy on your heart, breathe, maybe write it in your journal, figure out what works for you to let it go. So 2 actions, listen and release, because unity really is all about action. And the scripture also has the 3 promises. To everyone who conquers, I will give some hidden manna, and I will give a white stone, and on the white stone is a new name. So we've got the hidden manna, we've got the white stone, and we have a new name. The first promise, the hidden manna. So in the days when Jesus was out wandering in the wilderness and Moses encountered Moses, and Moses said that the manna was sent by God. The people only had to go and collect it. They did not have to do anything to earn it. How many learned as children you had to do something in order to be loved by God? I did. So grateful to have found unity to realize I am great just as I am. So we don't have to do anything. You don't have to be any different than you are right now. However, when they were out getting the manna, which was at the time that would be considered their food, and they wanted to save it. Anybody else a saver? Boarding on boardery? Right? Because I'm going to save this. I remember we only use special dishes on special days. You saved your favorite shoes and a favorite dress. Wear it. Today's the celebration. When we save things, especially food, what we know is that it gets spoiled, doesn't it? It does. Even Halloween candy about now is a little stale. Yes? We know this. And I know that because I was with my grandbabies, and of course they have their stash, and by the time we got to it, it's pretty stale all these months later. So when we are, you and I, in the wilderness of our soul, searching to receive hidden manna outside of us, what happens? We have unexpected needs that are not met. We have unhappiness. We might have an attitude that's not worth catching. And we may just be sad or something. So take the time, get recentered, and know everything's inside. Spiritual energy. That's what you're giving your stone as you're holding it. And what we know is that the spiritual nourishment that we give ourselves every day, however you give it may be through prayer, it could be running on the beach, it could be kayaking, it could be quiet, whatever it is, that's what's going to sustain you. But there has to be a process to it. That is what we call manna in today's world. I also call it grace, because it nourishes us, and it benefits my whole being every time I am respectful and kind to myself. So the second promise is the white stone, which is what you have. Back in the day, when Jesus was out and about teaching, those who had served time in prison or in bondage of any kind were given a white stone on their release. It served as a symbol of their freedom and the passage to their freedom. So they had to carry it with them. You might carry it for yourself as well. Who else has ever been in the prison of their mind? Bondage to things, yes? Bondage to relationships, bondage to what it should look. My car should be this, I should weigh this amount, my hair should be this color, I should have this job. What's the one word you're hearing? Should. And what we know is we don't should on ourselves in unity because it is messy. And it's stinky too. So back in the day, the white stone is a symbol. Let this be your symbol for this year. And maybe right now some of you are in bondage into something. And I don't mean it. It's usually to our thoughts and something we've attached to the creativity of making up stories. But what we know is as we let go the false beliefs, the old limitations, and the error thinking, freedom comes. Every time. Guaranteed. Each of us has different forms of what freedom looks like as well, right? So if you turn to your neighbor and say, I am grateful for my freedom of, and name something real quick that comes to your mind. I am grateful for my freedom of choice. Yes. Turn around, get somebody else, because not everybody has somebody sitting next to them. And you at home, do that at home. Think of what is it that you would let go in a minute if you could, or that you're really grateful for. And it's hard sometimes to think on your feet, right? Luckily, I do a lot of seminars and webinars that make you figure out this stuff, so I can usually come up with something. And I am grateful for my freedom of choice. What clothes I got to wear, what shoes I got to wear. Dave had to adjust the camera. I don't have on my high heels today, right? What I'm going to have for lunch. There's lots of choices. Grateful that when I walked out of the house, I could choose to take off my coat because it was warm. Yes, we're grateful. You just have to remember that. And when we get low, remember that you can not be unhappy and grateful. Chemically, it is not scientifically possible in your body. So choose grateful, because then happy comes. The third promise in the scripture is a new name. So in the Bible, when we read it, what we're told by the writers of the Bible, which we know are many, correct? That Saul keeps, the word Saul in the story means personal will and struck at his knees. Remember, he was blind for 3 days, and then he had to look within, and he was given a new name at the time of his awakening. Who remembers what Saul's name became? Paul. So Saul means personal will. Are we ever blinded by our personal will? Yes. And Paul means enlightened will. Many Unity ministers back in the day used to change their name when they got ordained. It was very interesting. Very interesting. Because you call them the other name, they're like, that's not my name anymore. I'm like, oh, I forgot you've been ordained. I'm still Therese. Showing up as her a lot. So the personal human symbol that will represents in the name of Saul must surrender to the divine will named Paul in order to claim the power of divine will. This is what our Bible study classes are going to look like. It's so fun to understand why we get ourselves stuck into things. So it's very common in mythology of the Bible to have name changes. In Isaiah, in the book of Isaiah, chapter 62, verse 2, the lower consciousness shall see your freedom, and you shall be called by a new name, and that the mouth of the Lord will give you in your time of silence. So the lower consciousness is the one of that moans and is sad and sighs a lot. The higher consciousness is the one like, what does this mean? Again, that I've got this lesson again, God, yes? And how am I going to get through it? And how is it that you're going to show me the way? The higher self within us. So Abram, as he grew spiritual awareness, became Abraham. Sari became Sarah. Jacob was renamed as Israel. Simon was renamed as Peter and represents faith. So each time we reawaken to our inner spirit, we get a new name. And it doesn't mean we change all of our legalities of things. We just know that we're showing up as something that is reawakened in us, renewed within us. It's like actually understanding the I am of each of us, and each of you all representing your I am. Because the I am is our God self, and that's a capital G and a capital S. Because when we're our low S self, that means that we're probably coming from our ego first. So in the scripture, I will give you a white stone, and on the white stone is written a new name that no one knows except the one who receives it. So I'm going to invite you to put aside anything but the stone that's in your hand and close your outer eyes as Jan plays some music. And say to yourself, who have I come here to be in 2019? Who have I come here to be in 2019? And what is uniquely mine to do in 2019? I invite you to open your ears and your heart as Spirit speaks to you and through you. We go into a time of meditation, and if the name comes to you, go ahead and write it down. And know that whenever we ask, there's always an answer. Our job is to be present enough to receive the gift of the answer. What is mine to do in 2019? It's a quality of being. A quality of being. As we let go of our old habits and limited thinking, what is it that I'm called to be? What name shall I be known by? I invite you to take a deep breath and exhale and ask yourself again, what am I called to be in 2019? Who have I come here to be in 2019? Let your awareness drop from your head and into your heart, and then even further into your gut. Each time we move from our intellect into our deep inner knowing, shift happens. And it's a holy shift of consciousness. Feel the awareness of divine love and wisdom that's enfolding you in this moment. And as we listen to the music, let's listen to the still small voice that comes up within each of us. Asking yourself the question, who have I come here to be in 2019? What is uniquely mine to do? And we ask for that one word, God, as our higher selves gets engaged. Open your imagination. And if it helps to do that, go ahead and put your fingers right between your eyes. That's where our power of imagination lies. And every time that monkey mind or your ego voice comes, say, bye-bye, move along, and invite your holy voice, your divine voice to come through. Perhaps it's a new career, a new title, a bold move that might be happening. We affirm in this now moment that a new quality of spirit is pressing out through you. What is pressing out through you? (2019), another chance at a new beginning. An everyday opportunity to be guided by Spirit. I invite you to trust. To trust in this now moment. To trust all that you are. In this sacred and holy place. In this one and only moment of time that we call a gift as we stay present. We breathe into the insight of your divine purpose. We welcome the affirmation of your holy essence. Right here, right now, in this secret place of the Most High. Breathing into knowing and allowing yourself to hear the new name that Spirit's giving you. A quality of being. It could be a published author, clean and sober, grateful, peaceful, illuminated. As your new name becomes more clear to you and you're moved to write it on your stone, I invite you to do that. And we stay in the quiet as we're doing this, sharing our markers as necessary. As your name comes to you, ask yourself, is there anything else you need to know? Are there any specific steps that you might need to take? As we listen, we say to ourselves, God in me reveals my true essence. God in me reveals my true essence. God in me reveals my next step. God in me reveals my next step. God as me lives a joyous, peaceful, fulfilling life. God as me lives a joyful, peaceful, fulfilling life. If you haven't written your name, I invite you to do so. And for those of you at home who are writing on a piece of paper, spend some time with that. So I invite you to open your outer eyes and write your name, and if you've already written it, just look at it for a moment. And if you haven't had a name come to you yet, take your stone home, and when it comes, write it down. A clean slate, of course, is always so inviting for Spirit. Every time we look at our stone, we have the gift of choice. The gift to live differently, to live a more fulfilling life, to begin again with each breath, to connect with God and create with God. Your 2019 white stone carries your new identity for this year and a deeper awareness, I hope, of what your soul's calling you to do and to be. this year, this moment. Every time you look at it, I hope that your awareness shifts. Remember, we have to be careful as we hear that word, the shift in consciousness, inviting you to express it, to embody it as you. It's your true self calling you forth, putting aside the humanity and calling forth the divinity. When we get quiet, our soul whispers to us, yes? And maybe each time we do that, or let's drop the maybe and say every time we do that, we can see it as the truth of who we are. We see it as ever increasing the good in our life each time we take a moment to be with God. And you may want to carry it with you these next couple days to see how it feels. Grateful for the flow that comes each time we look at it. The smile that comes to your face, possibly. This is your name. We see it as so, and we decree it as is. And so it is, and so we let it be. Amen.